of Indian commodity sector. Possessing over 6 decades of strategic corporate experience and alumnus of Delhi University, his illustrious career features senior leadership roles at global powerhouses like Luitrefus, COFCO International, and Sri Renuka Sugar. His unparalleled expertise centers on sugar, grain, and soft commodity cycles, making him an invaluable board-level advisor navigating the complex intersection of traditional trade and digital agribusiness solution. Mr. Sood, it's an honor to be sharing screen with you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And may I have the pleasure of introducing you, Deepak?
Sure, sir, please.
In fact, Deepak is a distinguished agricultural economist. I don't think he needs an introduction. He's an agri-tech entrepreneur. For the years that I've known him, I have always seen him on the forefront of technology, forefront of thought, forefront of approach. And he has worked at the intersection of agriculture, technology, trade, and policy, advising governments, agribusinesses, development organizations, and startups. He's a globetrotter. He has worked in over 40 countries. And we are very fortunate, Nashta, to have him as the anchor of this program today, which you must have seen from his introduction remarks. Thank you very much, Deepak.
My pleasure, sir. So now a quick note to our audience. We are discarding the traditional rigid webinar format this evening. Instead, we are entering an unscripted, highly conversational conference room chat. Our panelists will be interjecting, examining data, and building on each other's points in real time to give you actionable market intelligence. Let's dive straight in. Mr. Sharma, I want to start with you. Sir, can we have your presentation and understand the elephant in the room? Super El Nino or not so super El Nino? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Aista for inviting SkyMet to participate in this webinar. And sorry, Deepak, I was on mute when you introduced me. I without knowing, I did shake my head. But anyway, thank you very much for the introductory part. You see, the monsoon is a very, very complex phenomena. All of us, we know it's the longest event, more than 4 months long for the Indian subcontinent as such, and that too, it goes beyond even not only the Indian subcontinent. The tropics are covered under the monsoon regime, a vast area. Okay, and it's a big challenge. So we know the monsoon, all right, year on year, we keep dissecting it. All right, but then it leaves every time fresh mysteries to be resolved. Okay, and it's a challenge. 4-month-long event to cover each and every aspect, it becomes a challenge. But then I'm here to share my perspective with you all on monsoon 2026 and particularly the Super El Nino, which is making a lot of noise this season as such. Okay. To start with, I will say the monsoon has got cycles. It moves in cycles, good cycles, not so good cycles, bad cycles also. Okay. If we go back in history, say, before we stepped into this century, last 14, 15 years, 1988 to 2001, there was no drought, 14, 15 years. And then from 2002 to 2015, we had 5 droughts. 2002, 4, 9, 14, 15. So that's why I say it has got cycles. And possibly, I think for the last about 6-7 years, we are in good monsoon cycle. After the 6 years, we have had 5 normal or above normal monsoon. Yes, 2023 was a little dampener. El Nino conditions, and we had a below normal, but not that bad. 6% below normal rainfall was there. Last 2 years have been very good, 107, 108% of LPA, good distribution also. Broadly, it had a good distribution. So what we say is we are in a good monsoon cycle at the moment. Courtesy triple dip La Nina 2020, 21, 22, all good generally. Okay, but then we can say that the monsoon has generally been good for almost about 11 years now. Okay, no drought. No drought. But then statistically, when we work out, My average, which I say is about once in about 7 years or so, 7, 8 years, we experience a drought. Once in about 15, 16 years old, it's a severe drought. Okay. So practically what I say is statistically, we are approaching that period wherein possibly we will have a poor monsoon. How much deficit is going to be there? That's all right. But then definitely there are signs that it is going to be poor to very poor this time. Okay.
Mr. Sharma, sorry to interject. Sir, what is your LPA number? Like, there are a lot of numbers floating. According to you, you can give a range, that is fine. But I
Yeah.
think how bad it can be and how okay it can be.
You see, initial forecast, which we always give preliminary forecast, that's in the month of April. We had quoted below normal monsoon, but we had given about a 94%. Since these are the early days, we always wait for a while and course correction if needed by the SkyMet. We give halfway through, at least about 45 days of the monsoon months when it goes. We give a course correction. I think we'll need this time. As in the initial informal conversation, we were talking about the various weather agencies which are giving their figures this time of a poor monsoon. My feel is also that possibly if some drought can be there, it is this year. And it could be below even 90% also, the rainfall can go. Okay, most of the models, most of the agencies which we run at this time, they are hovering around 84, 85% of LPA. Okay, but then we will still wait and watch. As I said, middle of July or so, we will say, and in case it is revision is required or course correction is required, we go with that at that point of time. Okay.
Perfect. Sharmaji, another question, before continue. Sir, there is another big challenge, right? When we talk about the monsoon itself, right? 4 months, we have seen that in last multiple years, past decade, the months are shifting, right? It starts on 24th of May, so that you have those 6 days actually not being counted for, and sometimes it goes beyond September, right? This year it might happen. Right. So sometimes what happens is that we don't get the correct numbers also, comparing apple to apple becomes difficult. Do you think we have to be flexible in setting up that maybe multi-decade old formula of which month we call monsoon?
See, for the last few years, actually, we have been under the impact of the ENSO. ENSO, obviously, El Nino neutral, Southern Oscillation. As I mentioned, 3 years La Nina condition, 20, 21, 22, barely recovered 23. We had El Nino in that year. So it has been modifying, it has been altering the normal pattern which we used to have earlier. And the monsoon, possibly the arrival time, the departure time, that has been changed. Though the revision as such was taken up by the National Weather Agency also. These were revised, the arrival dates and departure dates as such. It was in 2020 only, based on 60 years of data, monsoon data, it was revised. But then as per that, okay, the arrival date still remains over mainland Kerala, that's on 1st of June, no change. But then the departure date that was changed, earlier it used to be starting with firstly the coverage as such. Coverage, the entire country gets covered by 8th of July now. Earlier it used to be a week more, that was around 15th of July. Similarly, the retrieval of monsoon, retreat of the monsoon, earlier it used to start from 1st of September itself. Now it is the 15th of September. That means it is the changes are there. So these are the changes. But overall period, there is no change as such taken place. But then we see the monsoon starts with the arrival of the Bay Islands also. We saw last year, it was around 14th of May against the normal date of 22nd of May. And this time also it was a little earlier, week earlier than the normal. So these changes are there. Possibly we got to analyze as to why is it happening. Is it the global warming which we keep talking about? Is it the climate change which we are definitely, which is there in place? So that is to be attributable to those factors, but that needs a long-term study before we comment on that.
Marshal Sharma, would you like to comment on the long period average itself coming down over a period?
Yes. See, the long period average, earlier it used to be 89 centimeters. Okay, 889 millimeters of centimeters of millimeters of rainfall for the whole. Today, the average has dropped to, LP has dropped to 868.6. Okay, 20 centimeters of rainfall, it has come down. But then how LPA is worked is, you take out the previous 10 years out from the data, and when the fresh data is available for the next 10 years, it is added. And it has so happened that the 10 years which were excluded from that data, they were the rainiest. And now what we have added now, as we told you, that the 5 droughts were there, 2, 4, 9, all that put together, what we have added is a little less in the kitty. Okay. So overall, if you put together, the normal has come down, LPA has come down by 20 centimeters or so. I'm sure by next time when the revision takes place after about 10 years, as I shared that the last 6 years has been good monsoon cycle. So once we take out those 10 years, previous 10 years out and add these 10 years, I think the average is going to go up again. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very reassuring.
Sharma ji, but actually let me be a little bit devil's advocate. So last year it was, I think, 108% of LPA.
Yes.
This year we are saying, I'm saying that to be on a safer side, 90. Though
Yeah.
actually, I myself have written an article on 3rd of June saying
Yeah.
it should be between 86 and 88 based on a lot of different data points which I was having.
Yeah.
So even I go by 90. So we
Yeah.
are looking at, sir, deficit of 18% than last year.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, 18% deficit in monsoon. What do you see implication overall, right? Not just on agriculture, but overall, I would say our reservoirs, our overall climate, our weather, our soil moisture. Can you give in next 5 to 6 minutes answer in detail answer of what we are looking at?
See, yes, you're right that the last 108%, before that it was 107%. And if I'm not wrong, yes, 2023 was a dampener, as I said, 94%. But before that, 106% it was there, it was 100%. So the rainfall on an average, definitely it has been on the higher side. As of the decade when it started, say, so from 2020 onwards. So for the last about 6 years, it has been good. So even if there is a deficit of about 10% this time, yes, we will still remain above the average LP of 868, which we have so far. It will be above that. And normally, the El Nino is the year after El Nino. It is not that punishing because back-to-back El Nino we don't have. Okay, frequency is very, very little. Once it was there. It was there once in, yes, 86, 87, it was there. Both were drought years. But then normally the El Nino lasts for about 9 to 12 months. And if we say that it has just started now in the month of June, possibly next year, maybe after the northern hemispheric winters, it starts tapering and then possibly it may end before the next monsoon starts. So but the devolve, that means this year is El Nino and next year it is going to be possibly, we call it as a devolving El Nino year. Devolving El Nino also is not a very safe period which we considered, but then it is not as harmful as El Nino. Normally, if we see that after the Super El Nino of 2015, which spoiled our monsoon and was a drought year, 2016 also, it was not a very good, it stopped at 97%. So it will not be a very punishing year, that is 2027. But at the same time, I don't expect it to be a bountiful rainfall even during the monsoon. Possibly it could be something around, too early to comment, all right, but then possibly within the normal range and lower side of the normal range. Okay, but it's not going to be that bad as per the statistics. So put together, all this put together, I still feel that the overall monsoon in this decade, when we start from 2020-21 onwards, it is going to be better than what we had earlier. So it will possibly increase the LPA, which I just now mentioned, which has dropped by almost about 20 centimeters as of date now. Yeah, that's it.
Right. Sir, also we would like some clarification for our audience. We talk about MGO, we talk about, so many jet streams, we talk about western disturbances. How do you see they playing a role, right? Any possibility of them, I would say that reducing the impact of Super El Nino, or do you think that actually might be some temporary,
No, you're absolutely all right. You're absolutely right. El Nino or La Nina should not be read alone. It should not be read alone. The other factors which you mentioned, they have implications. The only limitation being the Indian Ocean Dipole, IOD, which we say is a very strong factor. But then predictability, unlike El Nino, which can be predicted for model prediction is there for 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Like as of today, the predictions are even till next year, March. Okay. The IOD, Indian Ocean Dipole, it is reliability just about 8 weeks. Okay. So I will not be able to comment based on that at how is it going to perform through the monsoon season. Yes, as of today, for the next 8 weeks or so, it is in the neutral condition. It was in the negative neutral actually. Firstly, it should become 0, neutral, and then its threshold is 0.4 degrees Celsius, which could be only after month of July, I will say. I will not put my bet on the positive IOD before that. And once it becomes positive, yes, it is capable. It has the potential to take on the ill effects of El Nino to some extent. It saved our monsoon in 2019. It was drifting towards a drought, but then very strong a positive IOD, it saved the monsoon. But then very strong. It has to be strong within the neutrals or even up to 1 degree, it doesn't suffice. If it is sometimes between 1.5 degree or 2 degrees Celsius, then only we call it as a strong. And to comment about that, as I told you, as of now, as this date, I will not be able to comment on that. But the indications are that the IOD is going to turn positive during the monsoon season, especially during the second half. But then how strong it is going to be, that will be still a wild guess as of today. But the other factors also, like you said, MGO is there. It's a transitory factor. It goes around the globe, comes over our region, stays for about a week or 10 days. That's all, maximum. It enhances the monsoon rainfall, all right. But for a short duration, it has some contribution. But then to save us from the drought in case it is coming, that potential it doesn't have. It betters the rainfall. That much is there. The other factors you said, the jet, westerly jet is there. You see, in the monsoon, we talk more about the easterly jet because that is more significant. Easterly jet this is confined to the peninsular India, below about generally 20 degree north. That means below sometime around Mumbai or below that. Okay, this is the area where the tropical easterly jet is confined. Okay, and here it is not that strong as the westerly jet. Westerly jet has a wind speed of about even 200 knots. That's about 300 kilometers or more. This jet has a speed of about, say at the best about 120, 130, sometime around 150 kilometers per hour. These winds blow from the easterly jet. The stronger the easterly jet over peninsular India, the better is the monsoon health as such. Yes, it plays a bigger role. The other thing which we keep talking about, Tibetan high. Tibetan high is it is high pressure area over Tibet region, or so that is what drives the monsoon actually. But all these factors, they still have to come up. They have to show their face, particularly the tropical easterly jet and the Tibetan high. They will play a significant role in case they come up. Yes. So the El Nino is to be read along with these factors, along with IOD, along with MGO, along with the other, even the localized factors also will come into play. They also matter quite a bit at that point in time. Yes.
Perfect. Sir, now coming to you. Sir,
no, may I ask him?
Please, sir. Please, sir.
May I ask a question from Marshal Sharma?
Yes, sir.
Basically, would you have an early assessment of July, August, and also regional assessment for during these 2 months in terms of states?
Yes. Okay. So far, I only shared the bad news on the monsoon. Okay. Let me share some good news also. The monsoon is going to revive. Mumbai, which is waiting for the rainfall, monsoon rain very soon, anytime soon, monsoon will come, but may not be typical Mumbai monsoon, which comes with a bang, but then the rains are going to be there. Today also some light rains were there, but it's going to come up. Good rains also will be there over Mumbai. Within about next about 4, 5, 6, 1 week or so, we will have some good rains also over Mumbai. The monsoon will move ahead even on the other shore, that is crossing Bihar and reaching over East Uttar Pradesh also. There is a good likelihood of a monsoon system, which is the trigger for the monsoon rainfall. It's likely to come up at the fag end of this month over Bay of Bengal, and that is going to carry the monsoon flag deep inside, covering central parts, maybe all parts of Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, where it is needed the most at this point of time for sowing operation. It will take it further. First half of July, so in any case, it is going to behave much, much better. It will start even in the end of fag end of June, better in the month of July. I think month of July is going to do better than, much, much better than what the disappointment we have faced in the month of June as such. As of today, June is deficit with 43%, huge number. Deepak also mentioned these figures. Northwest India, which was earlier positive, today it is about minus 15%. South, where the monsoon came almost on time, it's about 28%. Huge deficit over central parts, 67%, covering Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and adjoining parts. But then, as I said, silver lining is July is definitely going to behave a little better. But the second half of the monsoon, though it is early to say, it remains at risk. Why so? Two things. One is monsoon doesn't keep the same pace for a longer duration. It takes a pause. Howsoever good the monsoon, maybe it takes a pause in between. And the second thing, month of August is notorious and known for taking monsoon breaks. Between second and the third week of August, mostly these breaks they occur. Breaks, when I say, large parts of our country that goes dry. Monsoon trough shifts closer to the foothills. The rainfall remains confined to the foothills and Northeast India, some parts of, yes, South India, but most of the pockets, they go dry. So that fear is there. Since month of August is very, very synonymous and familiar with those breaks, so I will suspect that it happens more vigorously when the El Nino conditions are there. So August is going to be, again, it may teach us. Okay, little early to say, but then like that. But first half of the monsoon, first month is spoiled, second will be good, third and fourth will be at a little risk. We can comment a little more confidently at a little later date. Sir, I hope I replied.
Right. So Sood Sahab, no question is ball is in your court,
Yeah.
sir. Let me say, now you have to stop questioning. Now you have to start
Okay,
answering, sir.
okay.
I need your answer. Sir, unfortunately, what happens that, sir, I don't eat food today. Tomorrow I cannot eat twice of it. Right? That's unfortunate reality of natural systems. Now we are seeing June is nearly gone. Right? The type of deficit we are talking about, June is gone. And we know 5% of sowing has happened of total Kharif sowing in June. Now, those farmers are not going to see, a large number of those farmers are not going to see germinations, right? Now, even if July improves and August again, so those who will be sowing in July, specifically we talk about pulses, oilseed, soybean, cotton, right? These farmers are going to be having a very tough time. In fact, in some of the places, government itself has given advisory to delay the sowing. Now, even if they sow in July and August is not that great, we have, I would say, elephant in the room. So, do you see a serious challenge in our productivity this year? Let me be very blunt on your face.
Yeah, basically, I'll begin with sugarcane.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that Marshal Sharma's response to my two questions has made me happy. Very, very positive response and encouraging. Now, what it looks like is that Maharashtra reservoirs are at the same level as 2024. They are slightly lower than last year. And Karnataka, which was in a bad shape, has recovered. The recent rains have been very helpful, and North Karnataka has had more than normal rainfall. And South Karnataka, well, some deficiency, but not serious. And now, these were the two most volatile states. They account for about 50% of the crop, sugarcane crop. UP is okay. East UP has had less rainfall. West UP fine, but the reservoirs are the storage is better than 2 years ago. So I'm comparing 2 years because last year somehow they were depleted, and that assures protective irrigation. And after listening to Marshal Sharma, we have the outlook for sugarcane would be, if last year's crop is 420 million, going with the crush data, etc. This year, the range would be 400 to 420. So if suppose these assessments don't come correct, and if we are not so fortunate in these 2 months, July and August, then possibly 390. And but looking at this year's sugar balance sheet, even 20 million tons is serious. That will come later. Soybean, right now the conditions are not good for planting. We don't have accumulated moisture. 2 inches is required. Maharashtra is worse off than Madhya Pradesh. But then again, listening to Marshal Sharma, I am assured by 7th, which is the ideal period, or 15th, which is a bit of a stretch, July, soybeans will be planted. This year, the corn farmers were not so happy as last year, preceding year. So area shift will likely to go back to soybean, because soybean prices are very, very high. And then Karnataka, there should be no issue in corn sowing. And but overall, the corn crop may not be as good as last year, because soybean will take back some of the land. And now looking at in 23, rice took a hit, very serious hit, which is not reflected in government data. But then the symptoms are there. We stopped exports. We stopped in 22. We stopped giving to ethanol. So the crop we wouldn't have stopped. But then we are going to end October with 50 million tons with FCI against a requirement of 10.2. So we are okay on that also, on the security point of view, and Shweta will handle the farmer's income, because you will be okay on food stocks, but what happens to farmer is a...
No, sir, I'll go with there directly. So Shweta ji, now the challenge is that we have seen that rural incomes are already were struggling, right? And this is going to give a little bit more, I'd say, negative news, because input price, we have seen that because of the West Asian crisis, right, has gone up, right? Because the plastic price has gone up, the pesticide price has gone up. So we have seen that actually predominantly seeds and non-subsidized fertilizer plus other input prices gone up. At the same time, we are also seeing that there is apprehension in farmers' mind, right? How good the monsoon would be. Do you see that there is a challenge where a farmer, like, just like in Australia, might think of like, this could be a season where let me be less aggressive, buy less of input, and let the God play. If it works, it works. Do you see those type of mindset, and also long-term impact of lower incomes in rural household on our economy itself?
Thank you, Deepak ji. I almost forgot I had to speak in this seminar because I was enjoying the conversation so well. So it is heartiest congratulations to Oyster for organizing this. Acha, I want to showcase one slide. I don't know if I can be
Please.
permitted to do that. Let me just start with that as a data researcher. If I'm permitted, I'll just share. And it's just one slide, but I just thought it'll just put in some agri GDP historical numbers. I don't know if I can still do it.
Just try share. I think it should work because you're a panelist, so you will have access.
Yes. Let me know if it is showing.
Yeah, it is showing.
It is?
No, it is showing. Now it is showing. Yes, please.
Lovely. Just one slide, just for everybody. This is one of the visuals that Arcus we had created. And we created this early when we started it. Now again, this basically shows the relationship between El Nino, LPA deviation, and growth rate of agriculture and allied sector. We are only showcasing selected years when the rainfalls have fallen. And it is for everybody to see that at least as per Government of India's data, deficits in rainfalls have not really as much translated into GDP growth rate following. I hear many people sharing that the problem is also with how the government creates the data, but without getting into the government data quality, at least what the Government of India data says, there is a deficit in rainfall, and agriculture GDP does not really fall much. But having said this, there are things that the government has been working on, and I'm just going to bring that up here. One of the most important things that the government has been investing into is they are creating agricultural irrigation prospects, and from less than 40% today, of the 220 million hectares of gross cropped area, at least 55% is under assured irrigation. The government has been working on climate resilience. I cannot say much on seeds, but of course, in terms of techniques and technologies, much innovation has actually been happening. So at least at the macro front, if we look at the historical data, the GDP hasn't really fallen. But having said this, the crisis is not just El Nino this year. That's what you very clearly said, Mr. Parekh. The crisis is also on the input front. So cumulatively, the costs of production are going up. We are working in Punjab very closely. It is just not the cost of production of crops like paddy, but DSR is lagging because DSR required certain soil conditions which were not now congenial, and therefore even DSR area might fall, and therefore groundwater depletion is going to worsen in the coming season. So clearly we see that the costs of production are going to go up. Historical data is a proof that the yields usually of crops, not just in Kharif, but also in Rabi falls. So not just Kharif crops of sugarcane, as Sudhir said, is likely to go down. We have maize that shows results. Paddy doesn't show much result at the national level, but regionally we've seen historically the data shows that the yields go down. So clearly the yields might suffer. Clearly food inflation, as you had started by saying, is already high. I was looking at the data at CPI and the wholesale level. Both of them show food inflation annually at a 5%. We need to remember, and this rate, by the way, is greater in rural areas than in urban areas. So what basically it means is, compared to last year, food is more expensive, and more expensive in rural areas than in urban areas. In rural areas, about 47 or close to 50% of a household budget is spent on food. So clearly, when food goes up, it is just not a disruption, but it changes the disposable income and the demand patterns. So clearly, El Nino has a direct physical impact, but also a spiraling economic impact. So we see there is likely to be a dent on the farmer's income. However, the government is working on a lot of advisories. We'll just have to wait and see. But clearly, history says that the yields would fall. What comes up, we'll see. But at least at the national level, historically, such a dent doesn't show. But we anticipate yields of many crops are going to go down this year. Deepak ji.
Perfect, Shwetaji. Shwetaji, again, connecting dots with what you rightly said, that the food inflation is going to definitely impact. And this year, actually, previous year, where the one factor was only the El Nino, or lack of monsoon rains. This year, it is pretty beyond that. So we have seen the prices of all the inputs, including the diesel, petrol, also increasing just before we got hit by the second disaster of El Nino. How do you see of the mindset of rural spending when it comes to actually FMCG product as well, because that is also dovetails directly in their spending and eventually having overall impact. And even the FMCG product price has gone up because their packaging cost has gone up. They have reduced the total amount of food or produced products they are giving in their packets. So how do you see this evolving for agri business or FMCG companies going forward?
Fairly. So, Deepak ji, when we started studying agri markets, we knew that whenever monsoons were lower, the sale of tractors, farm equipments would go down. And that was one of the lead indicators we would track if there was rural distress. So clearly that relation is well established, that whenever rains fall short, we have a lower sentiment of buying of farm equipments also. Let alone just that, as I've already said, Deepak ji, food inflation at 5%, and greater in rural areas than urban areas, where at least 50% of household budgets are spent on food. We sense that the sentiment is low and the spending would be lower than what could be if the monsoons were better. But of course, the prices overall are rising. There are much changes happening. So if globally the oil prices are up, our imported commodities get more expensive. Pulses are imported, edible oils are imported. if our own transportation gets expensive and that picks up every cost of being able to supply within the domestic economy. So overall, as we had been saying, that this year would be marked by a relatively more expensive, particularly food and related items, and that should have an impact on the disposable income very directly. As I said, it's not just a dent, it will be a disruption, at least from the way we see it.
Perfect. So, sir, jumping on to you, sir, sugar inflation, sir. Do you see sugar prices also, right, marching on towards the north, right? It definitely would help I would say NSE and BSE sugar listed companies. But end of the day, right? I don't eat sugar much, but eventually a lot of Indians do eat a lot of sugar, right? The number says that. How it is going to impact, sir? Do you see that the prices going still further up in sugar also?
Yeah, actually, during the current year, the National Federation MD gave an estimate of closing stock at 3.5 million tons, which is on 30th September. Some other analysts believe it can be even 3. So somewhere between 3 to 3.5, a good part of that sugar is going to be unfit for consumption because that's the bottom layer in the warehouse. Then geographical distribution may be another issue because some factory might have sold out, some may be having stock. And you have Diwali on the 8th November. So labor doesn't come back before Diwali. In any case, historically, we haven't produced much in October, just a few lakh tons. So November beginning, you won't have stocks of even 1 month, including the bad sugar. And I won't hazard a guess on what will be the prices because I expect the government to very actively make sure that the pipeline doesn't hold anything. What I mean is pipeline starting from mills. They'll make sure that the mills sell what they're told to, and trade doesn't hold stocks. And if they're able to flush the pipeline, then even the last bag is enough. And how effectively they are able to do, we have got instances in the past when they were fairly effective. Having said that, in that very program, the 3 panelists, eminent people from sugar industry, of the view that about 2 rupees a kilo increase in price from now to September. It may even be more. And going to next year, if right now good prices are very high. In North, they are 4,700 rupees a quintal against sugar price of 4,200. In Maharashtra, 4,600, sugar price 3,900. Good factories are small, just one wok and hearth below, and a small, too high crushing contraption. So they will start early to capture this margin. They don't care what is the recovery. They just see if there's a margin, they'll do it. Then there might have been instances of feeding cane to cattle in Maharashtra, but after hearing Marshal Sharma, now that possibility doesn't appear to be very high. Not much of crop will go that way. So the utilizing in good 20 million lower crop, which is 2 million in terms of sucrose. Now that portends that no export, probably no ethanol from sugar, or maybe very small quantity. Because I'm sure after the experience of September, October, November, the government may want to not take a risk with such low stocks in future. And I'm reminded of wheat about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, when the then management in the Ministry of Food decided that they don't need much of a buffer stock. They drove it down to 4 million. And we had to buy wheat at 1,100 rupees a ton, $1,100 a ton. And they learn. There's no institutional memory in the government. And so next year should be elevated prices. And how next year will be managed? If the crop is 420, fine. It's easier to manage. 400 is not so easy.
I totally agree, sir. So again, Shwetaji, jumping back to you, because Sutsap touched upon a very, I would say, confrontational topic, right? We all love to talk about ethanol, right? Maybe some people just like to talk. Some people like to have them in glass. That is people like me, right? Now the million-dollar question is ethanol, right? We are seeing elephant in the room. We are seeing there could be challenge of production of sugarcane. Sutsa rightly mentioned if it is around 400, then it's a problem. We have already banned the export of sugar. In this scenario, right, are we seeing that there would be a challenge, obstacles to this aggressive ethanol policy which we are talking about? Because maize is also not going to do that great. What actually, like, it has done last year, given the current scenario. So sugarcane and maize, both the key feedstock, having challenge. And if you go large quantities of rice, then I have a problem as a citizen that actually my subsidized money is going for ethanol, right? I'll be very angry and I'll be very upset with the government if my money is going to ethanol producer and for no good reason. Your views, do you think like, there could be challenges, or the government is headstrong that they'll bulldoze everything to get the ethanol in car, not in glass?
I mean, both of them could actually go together, but meeting both of them from in-house feedstocks could be an issue, and you're absolutely correct. So clearly, Deepakji, from current ESY, we assess that the burden of supplying, and as Sudhir was saying, even in the current year, the contribution from sugar sector, at least in terms of sucrose, is much lower than what the contracted quantities were. And therefore, the residual burden by default went to the grains. Grains, we were certain that maize would be the one who would be supplying. And then last year, government policies changed such, and that made available large quantities of FCI rice. And when we're talking about FCI rice, we are talking about rice that gets procured at MSP and has an economic cost of at least rupees 40, gets budgeted in the government budgets as the food subsidy, and selling that something with an economic cost of 40 rupees at 23, 24 rupees to ethanol producer clearly is not a strategy that is required, at least in a country with nutrition insecurity. I would not call that we are food insecure, but nutritionally, the insecurity continues to stay. And therefore, in a country like that, if you are looking at diverting 7 million tons of your 150 million tons of rice crop, even though the quantity is lesser, the economic, the land, the subsidy implication is huge for the country to reconsider. But as much as I understand, even the government foresees phasing out of rice dependency in some years, not immediately, but in some years. But that would mean maize will have to come up. We've been studying maize very closely, and we understand that in a crop which is about 50 million tons earlier, approximately 50% of maize would be required at any point in time to meet the feed demand. Now, the ethanol demand for distilleries, from the distilleries, including for drinking ethanol and for fuel ethanol, is going to come to closer quantities with feed demand. So both the demands will be aggressive, and much of maize will have to take the burden. We anticipate that at any point in time, not less than 17 million tons of maize will be required in case sugarcane doesn't come up as required, and FCI quantities are pegged. Now, we've been talking about land, food, feed, fuel debate. We've estimated, and I've been writing about it, that at least 7 to 8 million hectares of India's gross cropped area, and mind you, not fallow land, but land which is cultivable, will be required or is already required to produce and maintain E20. So 7.7 million hectares was gross cropped area of the entire Bihar state. So that means you need as much land to produce crops for energy. Can we afford it is another larger issue and requires another discussion. But having said this, we see that sugarcane may not, and we've been flagging it for the last 5 years, that there is a cap to which sugarcane can ever supply for the ethanol. So therefore, you have to come up with alternate feedstocks. If it's not rice, it has to be maize or 2G technologies. So now to answer your question, E20 could be in a soup in case rice FCI gets capped, which I don't think would. So if the residual burden comes up on rice, rice is enough at any point in time. The government has a policy of distributing the 25% breakage it earlier had under the PDS rice, now under 15 and 10%. So that 15% of broken rice is available at any point in time to be supplied to ethanol distilleries, and that 15% comes to about 7 to 8 million tons. So that any which ways gets available for the distilleries. So there is enough rice being made available by policy decisions. Maize has to come up, and the only way it can come up is if the yields come up. There is very limited yield growth prospect coming in. So, but overall, we see that one way or the other, E20 will come about. Energy security is important for us. I would not doubt it. So we are on the right line. But using grains, particularly rice, is a tough deal. And the government has to acknowledge that sugarcane is a cap contributor. It cannot be that large contributor even in the longer run. History is testimony to that. Deepak ji.
Shweta ji, the problem is that actually I ended up paying 11,000 crore for the 7 million metric ton of the rice which was actually diverted. Somebody made that 11,000 crore and actually it went from my pocket. So that makes me a little bit unhappy when the rice is diverted. And I think sooner or later government will have to take that call because this is not done. Coming to you, Sudsa, before I go to Sharma ji. Sir, do you think like it is better to import sugar and then actually give sugarcane to the ethanol? At least I'll save my 11,000 crores as a citizen.
No, I think, I mean, how to answer that question?
Sir, common sense.
There are 200 sugar mills. There are 300 sugar mills which have no distillery. Yeah. 2 days ago, the Honorable Home Minister said that he's going to invest 1,500 crores in Ichalkaranji to set up a common facility center for many cooperatives who don't have ethanol. So, which means we'll want all of them to shut down half the industry, because the industry is 570 mills. So that will be one consequence, that half of them shut down, and it may be good for the economy, because if they shut down, they will consolidate. Somebody else will amalgamate the capacity. So that's on a lighter note. Other one is, look at the sugar prices. Landed sugar in the interiors, like in Kolhapur, etc., after payment of GST, would be 5,500 rupees. And nobody, even whatever kind of estimate you make for this year or next year, is looking at that kind of price. So which means you burn your own sucrose in the vehicle and ask the consumer to pay 60,000 rupees for a ton, because ultimately it has supply chain, packaging and whatever. And so that is the second consequence of some such thing. And so I can go on, but I think it's not a suggestion we should follow.
Perfect.
Because other one is, all of them are 80% of the sugar industry is concentrated in 3 states.
Exactly.
Ethanol is concentrated mostly in 2 states, Karnataka, Maharashtra. Do you want to put that ethanol to save environment into a diesel-driven lorry and carry it to Jaipur, Jodhpur, and from Karnataka, or would you distill it from maize or something there itself, or sorghum? And
suits up. Sometimes common sense is not that common. I'll go to person with very high IQ. Sharma ji, question back to you, sir. Going a little bit broader up beyond India. Sir, how do you see Indonesia, Thailand, typically Southeast Asia? In fact, Thailand is having big exports when it comes to sugar. So how do you see the El Nino impact there? Because I think, if I'm not wrong, they have a pretty decent production capacities as well. And they do supply to the world. Sir, how about those countries? So you're on mute. Yeah.
The El Nino impact is same what we have over Indian region. The Southeast Asian countries, even our neighborhood, Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, going far further, entire continent of Australia. These are the pockets which are hit hard. Thailand is a little shade better out of all these. Okay. But then whatever the El Nino does, what El Nino does, as I brought it out earlier, reduce the soil moisture, impedes the rainfall activity. All that happens even on those countries also. In our neighborhood, the impact of El Nino will be visible. They also will have. Actually, there is a chance of even 40 to 50% of deficit rainfall as per the forecast of the European models over this pocket which you had mentioned about Thailand and Indonesia region. So they are going to be hit hard, and that is the core monsoon months. They are the most critical period, July and August. And July, as I said, maybe a little shade better on account of this. But then the El Nino is driving these conditions very hard, basically on two counts. All these which you mentioned, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, and India, these countries, much of it depends on the Pacific Ring countries, the Pacific Ocean, where the typhoon activity increases, but they become recurving. That means they do not become favorable for Indian monsoon. The monsoon depressions and lows, which are the triggers for the monsoon in the Bay of Bengal, they get depleted. They get less in number, become infrequent. Okay, so these countries also, and when those typhoons in normal circumstances, they weaken and become low pressure areas and travel across this Thailand and Myanmar and enter Bay of Bengal. That will not happen. Overall, what I say is this will impact those parts also. Rainfall is going to be deficient over those regions, inclusive of this Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, which we talked about. Unfortunately, I think we will have to wait, though. It's still the early days, but then in the past, going by the historic records, they will also be in the same boat where the Indian region is.
So now next question again, how do you see Rabi? Because as you said, like, maybe July would be okay. August, September, again, we can have a little bit of challenge. Now that brings, because in the Rabi, we just depend on the moisture, right? We don't have too much of rain. And if the soil moisture this is where you'll have the compound impact, right? Whatever deficit and excesses, you add up and then you get the soil moisture in Rabi season. Do you see serious challenges coming out there as well? Because there also chana crop is there, wheat is there, and wheat we are not that great. Rice, we have too much of it, that's fine. But do you see that Rabi can be a little bit, I would say, a bigger challenge than Kharif itself?
See, all these El Nino conditions, as I said earlier, they last from about 9 to 12 months. They affect 3 of our season. If it starts now in southwest monsoon season, southwest monsoon, northeast monsoon, and winter season. So 3 seasons will get impacted with this, which will cover the Rabi crop also. Okay, the northeast monsoon season, which mainly it pertains to the South Peninsular India region, the southern subdivisions. North India, in any case, in the month of November or so, there's a very little rainfall. Even till mid-December, there's a very little rainfall seasonally. But the southern pockets of India, the El Nino conditions, they are considered not to be that harsh for the northeast monsoon, southern parts, as they are during the southwest monsoon to the most parts of the country. They should behave a little better. So not that there are no impacts at all, but then they are not very harsh as such. So what I say is the southern parts of the country, possibly they do not face that much of a challenge. And sometimes the El Nino conditions, they do a little good also to the southern parts of the country. No, the northern parts of the country, they will get impacted, whether it is the winter season or whether it is the northeast monsoon season, starting with the month of December or so, November, December, Jan, Feb, March, first quarter of next year also, that will be at stake on account of El Nino condition. That means Rabi crop, as far as the northern plains are concerned, North India, even the central parts, that will be impacted. Soil moisture will be a factor. It will be low. The increasing El Nino conditions, obviously, that rise in temperature is there. Rabi crop basically in the north needs some cool atmosphere, cooling conditions. That may not happen. So a rise in the temperature, reduction in the rainfall, reduction in the snowfall activity, all that combined together may not sound good for the Rabi crop overall as such for the northern parts of the country. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Yes, Utsav, please.
Deepak, may I?
Yeah, please, sir.
Picking up from what Master Sharma said just now, we certainly expect a big hit on palm oil crop, because Indonesia, Malaysia, as it is, the green cover is not looking very good in those areas. And Indonesia is following the B50 policy, and that will further squeeze the supplies. And I would request you to cover the Western Hemisphere, the impact on Western Hemisphere and the crops. Should that, the oilseeds there suffer, we are in for a tough time. As it is, we have seen recent increase of 25% in edible oil prices. And so that is one. And secondly, sugar. Thailand has a crop of about 12 million tons and it exports most of it. It consumes the household consumption, or HoReCa consumption, FMCG. It exports a lot of food items in which sugar is contained, juices and this and that. And it exports sugar as well. So if this part of the region, with India absent from exports, Thailand not absent really, but truncated. And Asia is the spawn for exports of sugar from all over the world, and from the Western Hemisphere particularly. So that paints a outlook which is becoming very bullish for these markets, for the consumers in Bangladesh, Indonesia. Even China imports about 5 million tons a year. Afghanistan, Sri Lanka. And if Iran does open the trade, then Iran. So that's what I wanted to remark. And
Okay.
we'll expect you to take us through the outlook on Rabi crops, outlook on Kharif and Rabi pulses, and with the backdrop of what Maharshi Sharma has told us.
See, broadly, I will tell you, you said the Western Hemispheres also. The areas which we expected to experience the drought conditions, like the similar conditions what we have in the Indian subcontinent. The other parts that will improve, in addition to India, the central parts, Central America, including the Caribbeans. Basically, even though we many a time we say the Brazil, since the El Nino condition, they developed there only somewhere close to that that belt that's off Peru coast or so. But the north and northeastern parts of Brazil also, they face deficit rainfall, sometimes even drought conditions. Yes, south and central parts of Brazil, they fare better during El Nino condition. Heavy flooding rainfall is there over southern, and Brazil also is I think it's a bigger country even as compared to India. Huge. And south and central parts of Brazil, they have some good rains. And in addition to that, as I said, central and southern parts of Africa, they will have lesser rainfall in this. The more rainfall, that will be, if I have to list out those things, southern parts of US, Peru, Ecuador, eastern parts of Africa, and some Middle East countries, central parts of Asia. These are the countries which fare a little better rainfall. Okay, the large pockets, they suffer, but the smaller pockets also, they're there, which have some decent rainfall, very good rainfall out of these, which I mentioned that the good rainfall will be over these pockets, including US, southern parts of US, and the equatorial countries of Peru, Ecuador, etc., eastern parts of Africa. These are the pockets which will have effect of this. The closer home, as I said repeatedly, that the Southeast Asian pockets will be like similar conditions as what we have. Since I'm not a hardcore agri expert, but then I do sit on the television channels and wherein the other experts, agricultural experts, and they share their opinion. Everyone is saying that the advice is don't go in for these long cycle crops. Basically, like for our region, we have the wheat and the rice. These are the long cycle crops, and that they are particularly rice is the guzzler. along with the sugarcane, lot of water. So they always advise that, okay, if we can avoid, though I believe the sugarcane can't be avoided because that is not a cycle crop. Once you sow it, I think it goes in for a little longer periods also. You need not sow it every time. But then definitely the short cycle crops, basically the oil seeds also, the soybean, the pulses, etc., they are a better choice. And as you asked, sir, what is the prospects of that from the other side in the Western Hemisphere? I think that will behave a little better than what we have. Okay, what better conditions we have during the El Nino conditions hitting us, they will be a little better off. Okay, so as it is, I think we are importing a lot of this oil from those pockets, and it will be still, I think, is a better option that they will be, since they'll fare a little better off to go in for more of those things depending upon the imports which we have. So that's my opinion. Though at the same time, at the cost of repetition, I say I'm not the true the hardcore the agri expert as such. Yeah, yes, sir.
So South Central Brazil with possible floods,
Yes.
and Northeast Brazil with the drought-like conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, shortfall. Northeast Brazil consumes all its sugar,
Yes.
whatever it produces.
Yes.
South Central exports.
Yes.
So South Central may have to meet some demand of Northeast, and so that again indicates that if our region has less sugar to trade, maybe even the Western Hemisphere might have less sugar to trade. So,
and Susa, one more point here. Brazil, you have to understand, whenever there is a flooding, right? Everything depends there on the typically local logistic is roads, right? They face logistic nightmare whenever actually El Ninos are there because of flooding. Their road just disappears. So that is also one thing we have to see to it. Their cost of logistic increase. There is actually a lot of stalling of all the, I would say, stock which is there. Getting them to ports becomes a challenge. So Brazil is having very other nuances as well. So I would say that actually El Nino maybe it creates excess and deficits, right? That is how it is. It's not gonna help too many of the countries. Shwetaji, coming to you again, based on what Mr. Sharma said and Sutsab talked about, US is very keen to push $100 billion worth of product to us in form of energy and defense supply. Can that energy go beyond the crude oil and can also be an ethanol in future? Do you think that becoming a possibility?
Can I add one more thing before I answer?
Please, all
Because
yes.
I just received the acreage sowing data till 19 June. And the data in India national level says that the sugarcane acreage is higher at the moment as compared to last year. Pulses acreage, because the data you presented was at least a week before. So this data just come in. So the pulses acreage is higher, tuar acreage is higher, cane acreage is higher. Rice acreage, we are not surprised, is much higher. So having parked this, the acreages are coming up nationally. Overall, Kharif acreage is up by about 2 lakh hectares, not much, but at least the acreages are coming up fast.
But Shwetaji, but doesn't that say that actually farmers are not listening to government? Government said delay. And farmers are actually doing more sowing than even the last year.
Then farmers know better than the government.
And they better know it. It's their livelihood.
Exactly.
I mean, they earn money from it, and they know it, because we are talking very closely with Maharashtra, MP, and Punjab farmers, and they're timing the sowing accordingly. So clearly, I mean, the farmers are showing the momentum. Now, coming back to what you said on ethanol and importing ethanol, at least the energy policy at the moment says that we could still consider import of the feedstock for ethanol, but then ethanol for fuel blending may not be imported. But then you need to remember, if the country has an ethanol demand for fuel blending to the tune of about 13 billion liters, there is an additional demand of about 3.25 billion liters from other sectors, including pharma. That continues to be open. So point is, we have a demand which is higher. We may not import for fuel blending, but then the others are open to importing, and that's something that stays. But to think that the ethanol domestically will be produced by rice and maize largely, that is a lot of burden on the land. Ideally, it should be rethought. maybe we can consider importing the feedstock. But I think the core issue, Mr. Parekh, is that the country has to invest in yields of the crop. And unless newer seeds come up, greater acreages come under HYV, it may not be far off that we might have to consider, given that the land is also limited, and there is only as much land you can bring in even through increasing cropping intensity. So unless the yields go up, there is a high chance, if not for fuel blending, which of course we are already importing for other ethanol demands to the tune of 1 billion liters already, which is likely to go up in case fuel blending becomes an issue. But at the moment, if the yields go up, I don't see that need.
Shwetaji, the beauty is that actually, I always see in India, in agriculture sector, I call it 2T. You'll be tortured if you talk technology, right? So, so in this 2T mindset, and it is all across from the Krishi Bhavan all the way to BKC in Mumbai, right? So private, public, all sort of people, right? When they talk on the stages, we talk technology. But when we talk about actual technology implementations or in private groups, right, you talk about technology, remote sensing, AI, suddenly you'll find that actually you'll be having 100 people to answer and you get tortured. So 2T, if it goes, we'll have a higher yield. Now let's have the concluding remarks from everyone.
No,
Because I think
before that, Deepak, a bit on pulses and whatever is remaining.
No, sure, sir. In the closing remark, actually, Sharma Sahab,
Okay.
I'll go back to him.
Okay.
So, Sharma Sahab, main important thing is that the pulses, right? We import a lot, and we import from unfortunately our neighbors like Myanmar, which is also in the harm's way. So Myanmar actually gives us roughly 8 lakh tons of udad and roughly 3 lakh tons of tuar, plus minus 5% up and down. It is having initially they have good rainfall. In May they had decent rainfall. Then actually they have also dried down. India, the tuar belt, which happens to be Karnataka, Maharashtra going and to part of UP and even some in MP and small pockets in Gujarat. Do you see that pulses production could be a big challenge? We have not been doing, and in fact, if you can recall 22-23, when actually we had shortages. That time, everything went out of hand, and then Rabi also chana crop, right? It is very sensitive to moisture. Do you see there could be a challenge in the pulses?
You see, just now we did mention that the sowing operations have been going on all right, and it is not a disappointing figure. That means the farmers are going ahead with the sowing as such. What I feel is, you see, there are some of the pockets, some areas which are definitely, even if there is acute rainfall shortage, but they are the rain-fed areas where the situation, though the reservoir status is not all that good, but there are some pockets which are like parts of Uttar Pradesh, they're very good as far as the irrigation is concerned. Even northern plains, Punjab, Haryana, I think they are much better off. Their network is very good, irrigation network. So possibly those are the pockets which are going ahead with the sowing activities. And as far as the pulses are concerned, you see, these are the crops which do not need a great amount of water. Okay, even if now El Nino doesn't mean it's going to be a total dry up. Even if there is a the distribution, if the rainfall when it is required, if it is there at that time, and the spells which are required, if we have 1 or 2 or 3 spells, that is what they need. So therefore, I do not see the bleak prospects as such, as far as the pulses and these things are concerned, or the oil seeds, etc. They should behave better. As far as the Myanmar is concerned, you see, Myanmar, geography of Myanmar is different what we have. What you have along that coastline, Arakan coast, those elevated, those always the winds are through the Bay of Bengal. They are west, like we have for the west coast, like Mumbai and Konkan coast and the coastal Karnataka. The winds always meet head on that coast. Similarly, Myanmar region, that winds, they always, most of the time, they are favorable for that region. So invariably, even if there is a shortfall, that may not be to this extent, the monsoon rainfall is always better. Unlike we have the Himalayas wherein they range about 20,000 feet and above 30,000. There are no ranges in Myanmar as such, which are as high. They are very, very continuous, just about 8,000, 7,000, maximum go up to about 10,000. So they are those types of the geography or the orography. It favors the good rainfall. Even if there is a moisture-laden winds when they come, it will lead to rainfall over those areas, but this scene is not that disappointing over those pockets. So going by the same logic, even for our region also, the scene will not be that, but since these crops are not the guzzlers, they need very small quantity of waters or so. So I think they will sustain even the scene on account of the rainfall for these oil seeds, for the pulses, etc. I think that should be much better than what we have. Otherwise, for the other crops, basically for the rice crop which we normally see, parts of Maharashtra will see a little problem, because I fear that is going to be the one state which will bear the risk. That will be the most deficit of it. And in Maharashtra, that too, I think Marathwada and Vidarbha I see. On adjacent to that, possibly even Gujarat also, in the interiors of Gujarat and adjoining parts of Madhya Pradesh, these are the three pockets which I feel they will bear the bigger risk of having a shortfall of rain. Okay, as I keep saying, the rainfall requirement for these pulses, oilseed, obviously will not be much, and the month of July as such will behave. So the risk will not be that big as far as these crops are concerned. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Coming to you, Shwetaji, now we understand, right, if you have to give government, right, 3 policy recommendation on what to import, what not to import, where to put duty, not to put duty, right, what to make free to access, what would be like, 3 recommendation from you on the policy side, short-term policy, right, for next 6 months to 12 months, to ensure that actually the affordability is there and inflation is under control, so that the people in rural areas, at least they don't get into the harm's way, which we are currently seeing they could.
Lovely. I've written 4 points while Sharma sir was speaking. I've made my notes. So the first thing that Deepakji, I tried to show in my opening slide was that nationally the system shows some resilience. So there could be geographic pockets, spatial pockets which would suffer, but nationally drought and agricultural GDP has shown some resilience. But clearly we could have pockets where the distress is going to happen. So that just tells us, and if when Sharma sir says July rains will be good, so we anticipate that July would cover up a lot of deficit. And one thing that I have believed, and I'm growingly believing it is, rainfall is one of the reasons which determines which crop the farmer sows. Equally important is the price that he's realized or the prospective price he can realize. So, so I was talking to a farmer in Madhya Pradesh yesterday. He said, I'm going back to soybean and I'm not going to do maize now because the maize prices were lower. So clearly, the decision to sow a crop is a function of many things, including rainfall. But as I've said, the access to assured irrigation, micro irrigation, and other techniques has deepened. So there is some resilience. Last thing that I would park is that there is an announcement effect. Whenever there is a deficit or a likely deficit in a strong El Nino narrative, there will be announcement effect, there will be hoarding, there will be speculation around prices, and therefore they are likely to go up much higher than they would under ceteris paribus. That announcement management or that management is critical. But clearly, I see in pulses and others, the imports are open, and that is a problem rather. But I see that much is there, and the system would come about if the rains get okay. But as I've said, the biggest thing that I've been asking government is you need to have a land use planning. You cannot have massed land pieces going to energy crop. And second, yields. Unless yields go up, El Nino, no El Nino, the country would suffer per unit of land. Please. Deepakji.
Perfect. Sood Saab, up to you now to dissect, what as a sugar industry ecosystem, right, whether it's a mill or a trader, what they should be doing.
Well, first of all, we are seeing a different level of prices. And let's face it, sugar industry has been at the wrong end of the stick. It has not been profitable because it was not able to realize its cost of production, even of ethanol. So this may give an opportunity for them to cover their cost of production. And as I said, if oil prices have gone up by 25 rupees a liter and nobody has bothered, if at all sugar prices go up by a couple of rupees a kg, and we don't have a shortage, we have a problem for 2-3 months, and that if the pipeline is flushed or if the trade and mills behave responsibly, then the government action, harsh government action, would not be needed to keep the pipeline flushed. And next one, after listening to Shweta and the data that we have, if the crop is 400 million to 420 million, and if we sacrifice exports or part of the ethanol, we have enough sugar. So I think of all the commodities, it's sugar and ethanol which presents a challenge, which we should be able to overcome.
Totally agree with you, sir. Challenges, and we Indians, we are actually so resilient. We come out of all the challenges. Sometimes just like, not thinking about the problem, solve the problem eventually.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
so now as a last ending comment, first of all, I thank all my excellent, awesome panelists. They were rock stars. They covered each and every topic so clearly. I think the audience would have learned a lot. In the end, I would say that overall, we have to understand there are so many things happening across the world. Let me give you a little bit of macro picture. We are seeing West Asia crisis, right? And by no stretch of imagination, it is being solved, right? We might see the TV news that Iran and US are not sending missiles on each other, right? Or proxies of US, right? Iran is not sending missiles, but actually there is a supply shock, right? The oil which was not produced, which was not shipped, right? It was taken from the reserves. And we are seeing those reserves depleting. So again, believing that actually oil will come back to 60 numbers, right? It might happen as a knee-jerk reaction because there would be a lot of floating oil available. People would like to dump it. But eventually the oil would be, say, 80 range, and it used to be 60 plus range. So we would see the price of oil would be high, which will impact our economy going forward, at least for next 6 to 8 months. So that's one part of it. Second, when we talk about India's own equation, USD versus INR, when we talk about it, we are seeing it is a challenge which started far before even the Western Asia crisis started, right? We are having some structural issues for which I don't see even that people talking about rupee will come back to 92 once the Hormuz open. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. So we'll see weak rupee. Even I'm saying that the current level also, there is a lot of huffing and puffing to keep USD at the current price of 95 itself, right? And as soon as you let it go, you'll again see the numbers which are pretty ensure that rupee would be pretty weaker when it compared to US dollar. The third, we are already seeing the El Nino. Whether we see that actually its impact on rural economy or not, but we will see definitely there will be having inflationary pressures on the prices of majority of the commodities. Because in the past, when we talk about, say, 2022, when we talk about 2019, whenever we were having deficit production, the international markets were not so boiled up, right? For example, getting a tour from Africa was not that costly, which it is currently because of the insurance, the freight. So there are a lot of, I would say, complications around it. So even import is not cheap. So if we don't have sufficient production, we will be importing, right, inflation from other origins also. So it's not just India's problem, it's a global problem of importing inflation. Fourth area which we have to see to is that I totally agree with Sood Saab that actually we would have surplus of sugar, but our ethanol policy, we need to have a relook at that, right? It's not helping anyone. And again, coming back, sugarcane is the most economical, efficient, environmentally friendly way of converting any of the food to fuel. And actually it is, I think, rubbed in a wrong way. You are having bonuses for maize and you are having MSP